You are being manipulated by your own brain. And the answer to breaking free from this mental prison was discovered over 2,500 years ago by a Chinese philosopher most people have never heard of. What I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes can completely change the way you see your problems, your work, your relationships, and most importantly, how you see failure. You know what's most impressive? Some of the most powerful people in the world, some of the most successful CEOs, elite athletes, some of them have one thing in common, a characteristic that doesn't appear on their resume, that isn't taught in school, but that determines who goes far and who stagnates in life. And this characteristic has a name: detachment. But hold on. Before you think, oh, another motivational coach talk, let me tell you something that will blow your mind. A study by researchers at the University of Chicago analyzed more than 10,000 executives over a 20-year period. Do you know what the main difference was between those who reached the top and those who remained in mediocrity? It wasn't intelligence. It was the ability to make decisions without getting emotionally attached to the outcome. And here's the plot twist. This skill isn't a gift. It's an ancient technique that anyone can develop. The name of this technique? Wu Wei. And it comes from Taoism. But wait, if this is so powerful, why does almost no one know about it? Well, there's an explanation for that. And what comes next will show you how you can use this ancient technique to improve all areas of your life. Let's start with a simple question. When was the last time you really wanted something and didn't get it? It could have been a promotion, a relationship, a business opportunity, anything. Now answer me. The more you wanted it, the harder it was to get it? If you answered yes, congratulations. You've just discovered in practice what the Taoists call the paradox of control. Do you know why? Because your brain has a bug, a programming error that's been around for millions of years. When you desperately want something, your nervous system interprets it as a survival threat. And then it does what it always does. It goes into fight or flight mode. The problem is that in this mode, you make the worst decisions of your life. Have you ever noticed how the people most desperate for love push everyone away? How those who need money the most make the dumbest financial decisions? How those who want to impress the most say the biggest stupid things? This is no coincidence. It's pure neuroscience. And that's exactly what Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, realized over 2,000 years ago. Only he didn't have an MRI or a neuroscience lab. He had something even more powerful: pure observation of human nature. And do you know what his conclusion was? That the greatest force in the universe is water. Wait a minute, you might be thinking. Water? Really? Calm down. I'll explain why this simple observation can revolutionize your life. Water does not fight against the rock, it goes around it. Water does not force its way through, it finds its way. Water does not despair when it encounters an obstacle. It simply changes direction. And in time, water overcomes stone. Always. Now I'm going to tell you a true story that will illustrate exactly the power of detachment in practice. Once upon a time, there was a businessman who had built an empire. Factories, employees, millions in revenue. Everything was perfect, until the 2008 crisis hit. In 6 months, he lost everything. Everything. House, company, marriage, friends. His ex-wife even took his dog. What would most people in that situation do? Panic, despair, try to get everything back at any cost, right? But this guy did something different. Something that at the time everyone thought was crazy. He moved into a studio apartment, got a sales job, and put a smile on his face. People would ask, "How can you be at peace after losing everything?" And his answer was always the same. "I haven't lost anything. I've gotten rid of everything that was stopping me from being free." It sounds like crazy talk, don't you agree? But wait for the rest of the story. 2 years later, this same guy created a startup. 5 years later, he sold it for $50 million. Today he has more money than he had before the crisis. The difference? The first time, he was attached to success. The second time, he was attached to the process. And that change in mindset made all the difference. But you might be wondering, okay, But how do I develop this in practice? Because it's one thing to hear the story, it's another to apply it to real life. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you now. But first, I need to tell you what a Harvard neuroscientist discovered about the brains of people who practice detachment. And what he discovered is absolutely astonishing. According to a study published by a neuroscientist at Harvard University, the brains of people who practice detachment techniques show a striking structural difference. The region responsible for anxiety and fear, the amygdala, is up to 40% smaller than average. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational decision-making, is significantly more developed. But that's not all. The same researcher discovered that these people have a 3 times greater production of serotonin, the happiness hormone, and a 60% higher resistance to cortisol, the stress hormone, than average. In other words, detachment is not just a philosophy, it is a physical modification of the brain. And there's more. A behavioral psychologist at Stanford University conducted an experiment with 2 groups of business people. The first group received conventional stress management techniques. The second group learned basic principles of Taoist Wu Wei. Result? After 6 months, the second group had a 70% higher negotiation success rate and reported 85% higher levels of personal satisfaction. But the most striking discovery came from a neuroplasticity research center in California. They found that people who practice detachment develop what they called adaptive neural flexibility. In other words, their brains adapt more quickly to changes, process failures without trauma, and find creative solutions more easily. One of the researchers summed it up like this: it's as if these people have unlocked a secret code of the human brain. And here's the part no one tells you. You can develop these same characteristics. The brain is plastic. It changes as you train it. But how exactly do you train detachment? How do you put it into practice in your daily life? That's what I'm going to show you now. The first Taoist technique for developing detachment is called the art of as if. It works like this. You act like you've already achieved what you want. But at the same time, you act like you don't care whether you achieve it or not. Does it sound contradictory? That's because it is. Taoism is full of paradoxes that make your mind expand. I'll give you a practical example. Imagine you have an important job interview tomorrow. The normal approach would be, get nervous. Go over the answers 1,000 times. Imagine failure scenarios. Get there tense. And probably mess up. The Taoist approach would be, prepare as best you can. But when it comes to the interview, act as if you already have the job, and as if it doesn't matter if you get it or not. Result: you become relaxed, confident, and authentic. And ironically, your chances of getting the job increase dramatically. The second technique is called the water principle. Every time you encounter an obstacle, instead of trying to break through the wall, ask, what would water do? Water does not argue with stone. It finds another way. Is your boss an idiot? Instead of confronting, work around it. Find a way to work that minimizes contact and maximizes your results. Is your relationship struggling? Instead of forcing conversations, give space. Let the situation breathe. Is your business not working? Instead of persisting in your mistakes, change your strategy. The third technique is the most powerful of all: detachment from the ego. Do you know what the biggest enemy of detachment is? Your ego. The ego wants to be right. The ego wants to be recognized. The ego wants to control. But here's the secret. Every time you choose to be right instead of being well, you are choosing suffering. Every time you choose to prove your point instead of solving the problem, you are choosing ego. And every time you choose ego, you lose power. But there is a simple technique to break this pattern. And what I'm going to tell you now may sound too radical for some people. There is a secret about detachment that Taoist masters have kept for centuries. And this secret has to do with a skill that only 3% of the world's population has developed naturally. It's such a rare ability that when people see it, they think it's luck, charisma, or some kind of supernatural gift. But actually, it's a specific technique that can be learned. The name of this technique is Emotional polarity reversal. It works like this. Instead of fighting negative emotions, you embrace them fully. Instead of running away from uncertainty, you celebrate it. Instead of fearing failure, you desire it. I know it sounds crazy, but let me explain the science behind it. When you resist an emotion, the brain interprets it as, "This emotion is dangerous. I need to produce more of it to protect myself." That's why the more you try not to think about something, the more you think about it. The more you try not to be anxious, the more anxious you become. But when you fully accept the emotion, something magical happens. It loses its power over you. It's like fighting the current versus swimming with it. A behavioral psychologist at Yale tested this with people who had panic attacks. He taught half the group to resist the symptoms. The other half he taught to say, "Come on, panic attack. I want to feel you with all my intensity." Result? The second group reduced the frequency of attacks by 90% in just 30 days. And here's the most interesting part. They reported feeling more confident in all areas of their lives. Because when you're no longer afraid of your own emotions, you're literally not afraid of anything. But this is just one of the applications of detachment. There is something even deeper that very few people know about. And this has to do with every human being's greatest fear. The greatest fear of every human being is not death. It is not a failure. It is not rejection. The greatest fear is irrelevance. It's the feeling that our lives don't matter, that we don't leave any mark on the world. And that's exactly why we cling so tightly to things. Because we believe that having more, being more, achieving more, will make us more important. But the Taoists discovered something revolutionary. Real importance doesn't come from what you can hold on to. It comes from what you can let go of. Because when you let go of the outcome, you connect with the process. And in the process lies all the richness of life. When you let go of the need to be right, you open yourself up to learning, and in constant learning lies all growth. When you let go of control, you discover freedom. And in freedom lies all power. Do you know what the ultimate irony is? The people who practice detachment the most are the ones who achieve the most in life. Because they are not limited by their own fears, by their own expectations, by their own attachments. They flow like water. They adapt like the wind. They stand firm like a mountain. And in the end, they discover that the greatest strength isn't in holding on tight. It's in knowing when to let go. So I leave you with a question. What do you need to let go of today to become who you truly can be? Because your answer to that question could be the beginning of a whole new life. And remember, you don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. Sometimes the greatest courage lies in putting the weight on the ground and keeping walking. Taoism is not about giving up. It's about choosing your battles wisely. And the most important battle you can win is against the illusion that you need to control everything to be happy. You don't need to. You never needed to. Happiness is not the destination. It is in the path. And the path begins now.